Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand new, beautiful health care.
We're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done a thing for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening
public
on Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine. And when and health care. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security. And this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's let Vice President Biden respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very confused guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden. I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against.
If you listen to that entire clip, Mika, I mean, Donald Trump wasn't even completing sentences. I said last night that both men at times seem to be wrestling with the English language. And again, following up on a point that other people have made this morning, I don't know that Donald Trump's his heart wasn't in it, but for a lot of the night, he wasn't speaking in complete sentences. He was just blurting out phrases. His answer to in the environmental question was just absolute gobbledygook. His answer on health care, absolute gobbledygook.
Even his accusations and the lies that he threw out were gobbledygook.
Again, he wasn't finishing sentences. He wasn't finishing thoughts. There were stretches where Joe Biden was also struggling. I don't think last night was a great night for rhetoric in American politics, but it probably was a good enough night for Joe Biden, given the fact that some people are actually claiming Donald Trump won handily last night. That is a grading curve I wish I had had throughout high school, because I wouldn't have gotten as many D's in calculus and physics as I did.
You know, I've been thinking about this all night, and I actually think it was a great night for Joe Biden, and especially as you cut it down to clips and share moments of this debate for the days to come. I mean, he started off, and he always starts off a little slow, but he caught on to Donald Trump very quickly and said, we're not living with COVID. We're dying with it. 224,000 people, 1,000 people a day. There was this moment when they were talking about race, and Donald Trump said something like, I am the least racist person or something. And there was this moment where Joe Biden just looked down and said, oh, God. And it was good. It just sort of separated him from the whole situation, because it was just insanity and stupidity coming out of Donald Trump's mouth in the moment about separated kids. Trump saying that they're well taken care of was as cringeworthy as it comes. But Biden in that moment, you could see him truly in pain for those children, which we'll get to in a moment. And when he said that Donald Trump makes a dog whistle sound like a foghorn, that was a good line, and it happens also to be true. These are one of many that came through during the night. While Donald Trump, Casey Hunt, he played ugly, and he played ugly really badly. It seemed to me like, you know, he didn't have enough information to really make anything stick to Joe Biden if he was going to play ugly. So it was like playing ugly without the right tools, and it seemed to fall flat. But if you liked Donald Trump's performance, if you loved Trump's performance, is this what Republicans want to stand by, the clips that are coming out of this debate?
Well, certainly, Mika, as Joe pointed out, there were definitely times when Donald Trump was hard to follow. I think there was a mention of sheets and pillows at one time that led all of us, you know, to scratch our heads and kind of wonder where the entire conversation was going. However, I do think don't ask me, Joe. I don't know. The Republicans, I would say, though, are breathing a sigh of relief, only because they feel like at least he didn't make it dramatically worse. In the first debate, that was certainly how everybody felt the morning after, that this was a train that Donald Trump drove absolutely off the rails. And not only was it going to be bad for him, it was going to be bad for everybody else in the Republican Party who is on the ballot coming up in November. And this time, he didn't do anything necessarily that made them feel like, OK, I have to come out, put out a statement this morning. I have to leak audio of me talking to my constituents about how awful Donald Trump is because we're sort of maintaining the status quo here. And the status quo is good for Joe Biden. I mean, that's what Joe Biden needed last night. I mean, obviously, you always want to try and make things better for yourself, improve your standing. But at the end of the day, the polling is in a strong spot right now for Democrats, for Joe Biden, for Democrats who are running in the Senate. And so that seems to be kind of where we came out on this. And really, I think there were just so many nerves among Republicans watching this because nobody really had any idea what to expect. And at the end of the day, they got the Donald Trump that they're used to dealing with. It wasn't any worse. But Mika, to pick up on that moment that you mentioned about the children, I think that the president defending that policy to the biggest audience that he's had likely, in years really is the kind of thing that women in particular and the groups of people that have been really turned off by Donald Trump are likely to hear very loud and clear because, that policy, when we first learned about it, was, as I think back in terms of covering this administration and from Capitol Hill, but also looking at what the White House was doing, that was a moment when people started to turn against the president. And we saw a massive repudiation of him across the map in 2018 that was largely driven by the suburbs, largely driven by the gender gap. And that policy was a big reason why that started to happen. Suburban women looked at that and said, what are you doing? This is horrible. And to actually stand on the stage and defend that, I think, makes a big problem that he already has in this presidential race worse for him.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.